just off the premises.
Right. That
So-
large would be
so
off
you're
the
saying
premises
that
of its owner.
You don't even need the
that animals such
non-security
as,
restraint.
cattle, etc., don't need to be fenced.
No, if they're on your property. If they're on your property is what we're saying. So that.
So
they have
when
to
you
be
fence
secured.
them, they stay on your property.
So we should put fence in here then. They must be properly fenced in on your property.
Well, not necessarily,
Not
because
necessarily,
not all
because
animals
that's not
need to
it,
be
yeah.
fenced. Some animals are in a hutch,
Are
some are in
tied.
kennels,
Some
some are
animals-
tied.
So it's still not clear.
And my
Well,
dog
we're
is-
trying to make it as open and easy as it can be for everybody. I mean,
Can I ask something? Does the word restrained, is that what's frightening some of you?
I'm not
No,
afraid.
it's
That's, you don't like it, so.
I'm not afraid. I just want clarity. So what does that mean? My horses are actually on my property, and unless
they're
somehow
restrained
they
at a
break
fence, so-
loose,
And they're secured.
climb a fence,
They're
so
secured in that area, is that correct? Would you consider them secure in that
they're
area?
on my property is what
And
I
would
can
you
say.
consider
Every
that
farmer would.
secure in your area, in your
To the best of
property?
my knowledge, doesn't mean they won't get out one day.
well,
Or have it
Exactly.
done one day.
Yeah, that's, and then I'll actually come and put it back.
Well, don't worry, I'll be the
Yeah,
first
you're
one.
gonna-
I'll be the
Exactly. You're
first
not
one
gonna
running
you're
after
not
them.
gonna have livestock or even domestic animals of any kind.
I mean, everybody has animals get out every once in a while.
Sure.
I mean,
But I don't think you've addressed the question of whether there's any animal you would want to exempt, fowl, etc. It's up to you guys, not up to me, I'm just
well,
saying.
we said we're not exempting anything except cats and dogs.
If that's what you intend, then you go on and leave it as is and make no exemptions.
And how would it affect it if you struck out on or?
Significantly.
How?
In what way?
In
Could I
that,
have guineas next
Mr.
to your place?
Mr. Worley.
in my place, that would be hard because it's in
There.
Jameson, but.
So
you can have them as long on your
She
as
didn't-
long as
she
there
didn't
is a
answer that.
fence and they
We're
can't get
in
onto
the-
somebody else's
Yeah.
or a coop or whatever
Not a
it
guinea.
is.
You
So
don't
I-
want them. They make so much noise at night you can't believe it.
Okay, I'm back from the guineas, but she asked you, how would that affect it? You said significantly. What would it impact
In
it
what
if you
way would
scratched
it
that?
impact if you scratched
It
the on
would mean
or
that all animals could roam free
on their owner's
and
property?
have no fences, no.
We didn't say no fences.
But that's what it would mean. If
Well,
you
then
leave
If
it off.
you
But we're not
left the
saying
not
they-
securely restrained, if you keep the not securely restrained off the premises of its owner and not securely restrained,
But then you make it so that, well, I mean, it's a significant difference. The question, of course, for you guys is what you want and what you believe your community wants. The difference is the fencing for keeping the animals restrained to your property.
Then that
That's
should
the
be
difference.
defined as also a number 6.
That's
If
up to you.
that's
I
the,
think it's clear that that's up to you guys.
is there a problem with chickens bothering people?
Yes, we have had that problem in the past.
What did they do?
Well, they have chased Jim whenever he was reading the water meter, or people walking down the street.
Was he scared?
We have ran over them whenever we've been trying to fix the road.
Who had chickens that large?
Pardon?
Who had chickens that large?
Up on
It was the Shingleton.
where at High Tree
Is now.
Is
It used to
now.
be Doris Torres' house.
It's the
they had
Shingleton.
chickens. They had chickens that roamed.
Did it bother
around.
you, Jim? Did it bother you that the chickens chased you?
Chickens didn't chase me. I don't know where that come from.
Well, that's what
Oh, I thought
now
that
they
they
just
did
said.
whenever you were. Well, they chased somebody. I don't remember who it was,
Well,
but
I mean,
Chase Jim, he got
they're
him
not
by the
exactly
neck.
dangerous.
I don't want chickens coming into my yard and tearing up my property.
Because Stephanie
That's
Wiggett
so-
had to get rid of her chickens because they kept straying over to my
She
property.
didn't have to get rid of them. She
But
could have
I,
restrained them,
you
and
know,
it
she
wouldn't
felt
have
like
been
she
a
was
problem.
abusing them. She did have them restrained, but I actually love her chickens coming over to my property, so it's kind of sad.
bugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's so pretty and quaint, but okay.
Well, I'd love it if I could bring my snakes over and
No.
each. Well, no, wait a minute. What's the difference? I mean, there's a chicken. I mean,
Dangerous.
I
Is there a
love-
difference between a chicken and a snake?
well, I mean, to me, no.
They're not a domestic animal like snake.
well, your dog is a chicken.
Neither is a chicken.
Don't go there.
Okay, just for the sake of moving forward,
It's getting
I would
ridiculous.
moving on.
I would suggest that we not adopt either of the changes to number 5 or number 6 and keep them as they are. That's my motion. I don't know why we have that motion to keep them the same, but just to
We don't
keep
need,
it.
we're not making any changes, so we don't really need to.
Okay. Well, if we want something drafted up for next month's meeting, we need to give direction on what we want drafted up.
Right, and that will go to Lucille, and she'll draft it up, and I'll put
Oh,
it into the.
but the board needs to be clear on what they want them to say.
Right, but it doesn't, I reflect it, but it doesn't, and you have a motion, but if you want one, we can do it.
But I don't know how you know what's reflected unless
Why
the
don't we
motion
have our
itself
clerk
say
do
what they
it?
want. Either by voting or by,
You want a motion?
Madam Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
What's that?
Why don't you go through all of one ordinance, identify the items that you think you want, and then have one motion to do drafting according to.
Okay. Okay.
according to everything in this one section.
Yeah, according
So
to
you would
whatever you
discuss this
decide.
all animals and
Animal
change
ordinance,
everything
and then-
in
thanks, let's do
animals.
it.
So it's fine, or it's.
And then a motion to make changes.
Yes.
And everyone needs to understand that your direction for drafting does not necessarily, and that's not the final vote. The final vote comes after it's drafted, when a bill is before you, and then you make the decision. So there's no real decisions being made tonight except for directing drafting. And then if it's not drafted the way you intended, you're not obligated to it.
got it, good point, thanks.
Okay, on the back side of that page, in section 5, other property obstructing traffic. It states, it shall be unlawful for any person to ride, walk, or drive any horse or other animal across or upon private property belonging to another without the consent of the property owner, or upon any street, sidewalk, or public area of the village in any manner to obstruct vehicle or foot traffic except in a parade or event or otherwise authorized by the village.
Or gather them in when they're lost.
Do what?
Or gather them in when they get out.
They're not talking about
I
that.
think this
We
has
just
been
understood.
misunderstood a lot. People think they can't ride their horses in the street, but the deal is you can't do it in a way to obstruct vehicle or foot traffic unless there's a parade, and that's the key. There's been lots of folks who have said to me, oh, well, we're not going to be able to ride our horse in the street.
You don't say that.
I know, I know.
In any manner to obstruct a vehicle or foot traffic. So there would
So as
actually
long
have
as you're
to,
not obstructing vehicle or foot traffic while riding your horse down
there'd
the
actually
street,
have to be a
it's not a
vehicle,
problem.
which I could pick a time when there's no vehicles.
It seems to me like they asked for this whole thing to be struck out, and I don't even know why we have it.
And why we what?
Why
Why
it's
we
there.
have it.
It's so they won't obstruct vehicle or foot traffic.
Like I'm going to get my horse in front of a tractor,
Well, then it's not a problem if it's there.
and
You're
then
not gonna do it,
does
it's
it
not a
need to be
problem.
there then?
In other words,
I
you
have
have
to
to-
agree.
on.
The obstructing of traffic is so minuscule in this town that I don't see a need for it. The whole ordinance.
But
That whole
isn't-
section.
That whole number
5.
5.
Yeah, whole number 5.
My
I mean-
point is that it's not going to hurt anything since it's
Exactly.
But why have it? Scratch it. It's one less thing to argue over.
Isn't it just redundant from, don't we already have the traffic laws that would govern, except for the
The only
for the
traffic
village, for the village streets, I mean, the major thoroughfares are,
are governed by
Big
the state,
highway.
yes. But this would apply to village streets.
And that
But
happens
not
with
the main
once in a
highway.
million years. That's not in here.
right,
When you go speeding,
Well,
It isn't redundant.
okay.
go speeding on the village streets, and a state trooper can pull you over and give you a ticket.
Okay.
mandatory request.
Section 8, public asked to change demanded to requested.
Okay, I guess I missed it.
what happened on 5?
Nothing's happening.
Nothing? So we did, Beth wanted to keep it, and we did keep number 5. Is that what happened there?
Well, I asked if there was any more discussion, and nobody else said anything, so.
And when we do all of this and make our direction to seal the draft for the next meeting, and we'll have a decision on that.
And is
But
that
I
gonna be
think the
tonight?
discussion was,
No.
No?
on how to draft, it's gonna be tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, on how to draft it, yes.
All right, okay,
But
thank
as far
you.
as passing something tonight, no.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry. We aren't. Another.
It's all right.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to change it to requested instead of demanded.
Oh, then it'll probably go
You change it
through.
to what?
On number 8, the recommendation was to have it say when requested.
Requested by a designated officer instead of when demanded.
Yeah, just, I can see where that would be unclear to people, because they didn't say I had to, they just said I should or would I please. And so then that's, yes, so demanded does have a requirement.
If you ought to change that in the last sentence, that should also be changed to request.
When making such a request.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Request instead of demand.
Yeah, that's frankly, that's just mirroring state law. State law uses demanded.
What's that last chair?
Yeah,
I lost
that's-
3 pens now.
Appropriation, a little less spread.
I lost 3 pens I had. I just get this from my husband. Oh, here we found some.
Okay. I think it'd be easier to do it under the words. Than wait and read all of them at the same time. Okay, I think that's all of the requests for change on the animals ordinance.
We have one more question.
On number 8.
On 9.
What's that?
When it talks about the designated officer, who is that?
You don't have
Be the complaint panel, chair.
So that needs to
So that needs to be changed instead
Changed
of by the designated officer, and it talks about that in several places.
I think what we
Demanded of
did
the
in the
designated
definition,
officer.
we can, I think in the definition section where it talks about the complaint panel, it says it in a way that it says every time it says officer, or whatever that just says in there, every designated officer refers to the complaint panel.
If you look at your general provisions ordinance, which is on page 5 of your ordinances, if you have them, designated officer is defined as the person or persons duly authorized by the board to act on behalf of the city in matters of ordinance enforcement, animal control, inspector, or other official duty designated by the board. So if you designate your complaint panel, they become
On the
that
panel that we're talking
designated
about.
How difficult is it to change that though?
How big a deal is it to change what? Designated officer?
Yeah, the way it's stated there. How difficult is that to change
You
that?
have to go through and find it every place in the ordinances where it says that, and when we've already got it defined, I don't know why we need to change it. You think
I
that's,
agree, I don't know what would need to be changed.
I mean, because the definition of a designated officer is stated in there, it's where it can be.
Yeah, I get your argument. Mine is that it just makes it clearer for the next person that reads it, doesn't have to go back and forth to figure out what that term means.
Look to the definition.
So then what would we, I mean, what are you gonna call that person? It's not a designated officer, it's a, I mean,
I mean, the whole definition section is pretty inclusive, you know, it defines a motor vehicle, any self-propelled vehicle. So I guess every time it said motor vehicle, we could say any self-propelled vehicle. I just think it's more concise and clearer to have them all be treated the same by the same definition instead of doing that. When it says county, it means Davies County. When it says debris, it means those words.
I don't know what else we would call that
Which are
person.
benefit, yeah.
You use representative person, but again, it's not an officer in the sense of somebody who is patrolling and going out and doing things. It's just, technically, the clerk is the financial officer of the village. It's just the term officer, that's all it is. There's no boogeyman behind the term. It just means officer.
It means officer.
We won't even get through.
I mean, do you have any what we could change, if,
Well, I'll have to think about it, but I,
okay, then, let's, yes, we just need
That
a motion to, what, to have Lucille draft?
one. Or Elaine. Let's have Elaine do it.
by the order of the board shall be coordinated activities by,
Is that the definition under section 8, is that what you're saying? Laura?
actually, section 9.
Oh, 9.
The number 1 there, where we're looking at a dangerous animal being impounded by order of the
A person.
board or
It is, it will be a
It'll be a
designated
designated
officer,
officer, it's gonna
because the
be the dead horse
designated
by-
officer definition for that will cover what we're
Well,
doing.
that's why I asked you
to-
the question, how difficult is, you're saying it's too difficult to change it. I'm saying it's, it lends itself to unclarity.
I think it makes it clear because the definition is the
Yeah,
same
I see
throughout the
that.
whole document. We don't have to find every place where it refers to something like that and change it, because the definitions are there. That's why, it's just another perspective.
So then, I guess we just need a motion for what Lucille to draft in regards to the changes.
For this whole section.
Under this one ordinance,
And
the animals ordinance, yes.
Well, just to get us off the dime, I recommend we keep the language that's currently in it. That's my motion.
In the entire ordinance, I thought you wanted to change requested.
Right, you're right, we changed it except for requested to the
Section
mandate.
8.
You're right. Section 8, thanks.
Chickens.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was
Chickens and
gonna
horses.
say. Make a motion that we, we keep the ordinance as is and have the, except for section 8, where we have the word request, demand replaced with request in both areas on that.
Or requested.
Madam Chairman, may I request that the motion for each of these be, make a motion to direct drafting to, because you're not actually making a decision other than directing drafting at this time. So all of these motions should be a motion to direct drafting
to,
such and such.
okay, is that all right with you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, then let it stand that that's the way it.
And who,
Second it.
who was that doing the drafting?
Lucille will do the
Lucille will
drafting.
do the direct draft.
She's our drafter?
Yes. Okay, I have a
Let's
motion.
see.
Let's do regular vote unless it's unclear, and then call for it.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to direct the drafting. To change section 8 from wording from demanded to requested to demand to request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed. All right. Moving on to dogs. Okay, the bottom, section 2, identification and vaccinations required. Number 2, the public recommended that we not have a rabies vaccination requirement. Thoughts, comments?
Why they need to be vaccinated for rabies?
I can answer that one, Lucille. Sorry, Aletha, didn't mean to call you the wrong name. I deal with alternative medicine, and there are other methods of prevention other than rabies vaccination. So then that restricts a person's choice of how to treat their animals. So it's not that you're not preventing any kind of a problem, you're just not doing it in that fashion.
Any other discussion on that?
Well, I've got mixed emotions on the vaccinations because of the many things that I've read, and a yearly vaccination for rabies being not necessarily the best for your dog, or more than a way to generate vet visits and things. I don't think we clarified when the vaccinations would be, or licensing that. I don't know that there needs to be an ordinance for that. I'm kind of on the fence about that because I've read it both ways. Where a vaccination every 3 years is sufficient, or even recommended.
Lifetime.
And then exactly, and then there's also lifetime vaccinations versus bringing your pet for something they don't need.
Madam Chairman, could I point out that the ordinance does not require annual? It merely requires that it be current. Also, the state law still requires rabies vaccination by a vet. However, if you choose, you can choose to leave it out if you want. That simply means that the village would have no enforcement authority with regard to it. So you can do whatever you want, but just be aware that there is still a state law. I think that may be changed over the next few years because of the very things you're bringing up, but it hasn't been changed yet. But the village doesn't have to choose to enforce this if it's up to the village.
So it's redundant then?
Well, it's up to us whether we want to require.
But that's what I'm saying. Basically, it's redundant because the state requires it. So
As far as vaccination.
Madam Chairman, it isn't redundant to require things that are required by state law, because the difference is whether or not you can enforce it. As we all know, there's little involvement by our county officials and such. So it's a question as to whether you feel the danger of rabies is sufficiently serious that you want to have the authority to require it. If you don't, then you don't really need to have this. If you do, and you believe your community would want it, then that's why you would have it. But much of the law that you operate under is you merely restate state law, and you have the jurisdiction to enforce it. In many cases, the state sets laws and requires you. You're the enforcement authority, the only one. In this case, there would be an enforcement authority if there was a known. There's a portion of it even that deals with a rabies outbreak that is different than this, and it's later in the ordinance. But that's just the background on it. That's what. That's
usually wild animals when they have a big.
Have that cause it, yeah.
Has there been a case of rabies in the town? I know there hasn't that I know of in the last 20 years.
I have no idea.
What is the state requirement? Is it annual? Rabies vaccine by that annually? No, it doesn't. I don't think it says either. It just has to be current.
Hello? Hey. Excuse me, I just need to give Jim something.
Oh. Waltzing through.
I yelled at Carrie.
You're back, Patty.
See ya.
See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya, right?
Actually, I kind of miss it sometimes.
Have a seat. Sit on this side of the
Oh,
room.
that's all right. I got a husband out here waiting.
So
I don't know what the state law
if you were to strike it, the state law still applies. It would just mean that you don't have to worry about it. It still would be under the umbrella of enforcement by the state.
So that would mean that if somebody did get hit by a dog
They're still
that had, and they
state.
got rabies,
Or a
from that
squirrel.
we couldn't do
Or a
anything
groundhog.
about it, but the state would.
Right.
Well, the state could, doesn't mean it would, but they could.
Let the state do it.
You don't really need a motion as you discussed
Yeah.
before, you want to go through the
Yeah,
whole.
we're gonna go through the
ordinance.
whole thing and then we'll
And then
make
we'll
a
decide.
motion to do changes.
If we did want to eliminate that, though, it'd just be section 2, is that right? That's the only one.
Right, it's- Yes.
Mhm.
Or do we?
Yeah, section 2 of
Section-
section 2. Section 2
Exactly,
of
section 2 of section 2.
Okay, because we still need a tag, which is section 4, so we know who it is, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and section 2, number 1 says, it shall be the duty to keep a tag on it at all times,
So
identification
it's, so
tag.
it's really section 2, number 2, but if we didn't want
Yeah.
Section 2.
it would,
Yeah.
we'd keep the identification and not the vaccination.
It's kind of weird because everybody knows everybody's dogs in town. It's only the stray dogs we don't know, and they don't have tags. Nobody's putting one on them. So,
That's how
where do you get these
identify
tags? Do you
race.
provide them for us, or I mean,
We haven't got to that part yet. I don't know. Okay, moving on. The next recommendation is in section 9, public nuisance. Number 2, letter A, prolonged barking, howling, or yelping. Public recommendation was to remove barking.
But not howling and yelping.
That was the recommendation that I wrote down, where maybe
I
Hey,
thought it was just the whole thing.
you thought it was the whole thing, so
Oh.
I think we can discuss whatever.
Aletha? All right, I had a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was talking to her about that. Okay, so I'm outside frequently in the evening. I'm a night person. And it was interesting because then this deer come bounding behind me back on Heffley's by his pond. So here comes Heffley's dog over there barking. There goes my dog barking, but they were barking at a deer. And then there was some kind of, I don't know what they look like here, but I'm assuming it was a coyote, big old long tail out there. And they're barking, and there's so much. I mean, Vance's little dog was grabbed by a coyote out from his house, about 10 feet, and he carried him off, and he chased it, and he dropped it. But there's so much stuff out there, and for me, that's one of the reasons I have a dog. It lets me know when there's something not right on my property. That's a dog's kind of what a real dog does, and what my dog does. And some nights they just bark. Some night Heffley's dog barks because I'm going in and out. I mean, but you can't really control if a dog's going to bark at something that's out there in its territory. So.
Well, but I think what the key word I see on it that comes to mind to me on this is prolonged. If there's a dog that's there's a difference to me being a dog owner between a dog who's on alert versus a dog who's prolonged barking because they're neglected or because they're in pain or if a dog is barking for 45 minutes.
There you're getting into definition though, because
Yeah.